Hey guys, Captain Dylan Hubbard here at Hubbard's Marina, and it's Sunday night. It's time for our live stream show. Hopefully everybody's ready for a great show tonight as we get started off here talking all about what's going on, what's coming up, and all the wonderful things that we are excited about, and all the great catches we've been seeing lately. Definitely been some really good fishing going on. We've got some nice weather coming up this weekend. And we missed last week because of a trip. So due to that, we've got a ton of extra photos to show you guys tonight. Gonna be a lot of photos to kick us off. So we're excited about that. Some cool stuff has been caught. And fishing has been very good. And hopefully you guys are ready for a great show. We're going to talk all about what's going on, what's coming up, and answer your questions live. So thanks for tuning in and hanging out with us. Want to give a special shout out to those of you who have sent stars while we were getting rolling there. I saw Chris Bass, Craig Robinson, Richard Blazak, Stephen Batchelor, Jim Evans, Greg Beneduce, and Nick Nieves with 1,200 stars. Thanks, Nick. Appreciate all you guys who sent stars and gals. I'm sure there was a few more I missed. I just only saw a few of you guys, so appreciate that for sure. And want to get into things here and talk a little bit about what's going on. I just got reminded. One thing we definitely need to talk about tonight is how we were nominated for top 10 boat tours in the United States, in the entire country, by USA Today. So definitely want to talk about that and share that link because voting, I think, closes in like 12 to 14 hours. It's your last chance to vote and help us out, get to the top of that list. Pretty cool. Kind of out of the blue, didn't really know about it, but then all of a sudden it appeared, and it was voting has been open for like 30 days, and we found out 2 days before voting closed that you could vote to vote to bring us up in the list because we got nominated for top 10 boat tours in the country, and I think there was like 20 boat tours that were nominated. So we need your votes to help us get to the number one spot. But definitely a huge honor. And Josh, a lot of times I think that link gets shortened and then you have to navigate over to it. It's difficult. But Josh is going to post that link in the comments once he gets that one figured out. So make sure you pop over to that during the show or after the show and make sure you give us a vote. We'd appreciate it. Also want to give a shout out to our friends over at Gator Jim's Tackle. Gator Jim's Tackle. This show was brought to you by Gator Jim's Tackle. It's 3301 Pinellas Point Drive South in St. Petersburg. Definitely go check out our friends at Gator Jim's. They are really, really cool shop. Definitely a lot of really knowledgeable people in there, and they have an incredible inventory and absolutely smoking deals. You do not want to miss out on the opportunity to go visit Gator Jim's Tackle over again at 3301 Pinellas Point Drive South in St. Pete. They are the ones who make this show possible, along with our supporters and star senders. So appreciate all of you guys. Also, want to talk a little bit about you want to win some free trips, right? Hopefully you want to get involved with that and win some free fishing trips. We give away over $800 in free trips every Sunday night during the show. And the show is every Sunday night at 8:30 p.m. So hopefully you enjoy it. If you want a chance to win those free trips, you do have to comment one time on the Hubbard's Marina Facebook stream. So go over to facebook.com, then search for Hubbard's Marina, and then once you find the live video on the Hubbard's Marina Facebook page, you can comment once. Now, from there, you can move around to watch it on Trovo, on Twitch, on Yellow Duck, on Instagram. You can watch it anywhere you want, but you have to comment one time on the Hubbard's Marina Facebook stream in order to be eligible to win those free trips. Then you got to watch the whole show live if you want to win a free trip, because when we pick out the random name generator and it generates a random name from the comments, You have 5 minutes or less to text us at this phone number right here. So you got to watch the whole show live, comment one time on the Hubbard's Marina Facebook stream, and then you got 5 minutes or less after we call your name, if we happen to call your name, to text us your full home address to that number to claim that free trip. Jason Richmond, appreciate those stars. Thanks, man. Let's see here. Also, if you're watching on Instagram, remember you can pop over to your phone's browser and find Instagram.com on your phone's browser instead of watching through the app. And then once you navigate to our page, you'll be able to turn your phone sideways and see the whole screen. If you're watching on Instagram app, it's not going to show you the full screen even if you rotate your phone. So just keep that in mind. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe and give the video a thumbs up. If you're watching on Facebook, like the video, share it with your friends on your timeline, share it to your favorite fishing group. We appreciate it, guys. If you're watching on Trovo and Twitch, make sure you subscribe as well. With that, it's time. Let's get into some of these inshore fishing photos and show you guys what we've been catching inshore here. Definitely a lot of inshore photos to go through this week because, like I said, last week we were out. So some extra photos this week. The black drum bite has still been pretty hot around the area. We're seeing a lot of these black drum. You can see kind of where he's fishing in the background. Lots of those mangrove, oyster bar-ish shorelines, local bridges of the intercoastal mouths of bayous. Definitely a good area to look for these black drum right now. And we've been seeing quite a few of them in the early morning hours and through kind of the dusk hours around those dock lines, seawalls, bridges. Definitely more crustacean-oriented, big live shrimp, crabs, all good options. Jack Crevalle have definitely been pretty active, especially in the early morning hours, pouring out of the back bay to kind of go searching middle bay areas for lots of moving water and active bait. Haven't really seen many of them in the past or on the beaches, but they'll definitely venture out there once the bait gets a little bit more thick. Another shot of a nice local Jack Crevalle. Water's warming up. Mangrove snapper are starting to show up inshore in force. We get a lot of those sheep's head when the water's cooler, but this time of year, as water warms, we see more and more of those areas that were dominated by sheep's head starting to get more dominated by those mangrove snappers. So pretty cool seeing the mangrove snapper bite picking up inshore. Definitely a surefire sign that things are warming up inshore. Now, this one's pretty cool. This is Captain Chris Wiggins over here on the right. Really, really cool local captain and a very fishy guy. He's been on the Pro Redfish Tour for a long time. Great captain. A lot of our clients fish with him while they're in town. And this is his granddaughter, I believe. This photo was submitted by a viewer, and she caught her first redfish. So that is her very first redfish. And if any of you fish inshore, you know that is a trophy fish for a first fish. It's pretty cool. So she was pumped up about that. Very cool stuff. Thanks for sending that one in, Captain Chris. Lots of redfish action lately around the mangroves, around the grass flats, following those mullet. If you can find the mullet, you can find the redfish. Soft plastics, live shrimp, pinfish, but the dead cut bait up underneath the mangrove shorelines at higher tides has definitely been good. Or if you find those schools of mullet, you can cast out a dead cut bait and work it with a lure. Another good way to target them. The soft plastics are a good lure to use, but the dead cut bait is definitely a good option, especially as that water continues to warm. They really hone in on a cut threadfin or cut pinfish, soak it on the bottom around the flats, and you can always cast one of those out to an area you're not targeting and then work the other side of the boat with a lure. And that's what a lot of these guys do to have a lot of success this time of year for those redfish. And definitely a lot of nice redfish have been caught. Still some sheep's head around. This was from last week, but we're still seeing the sheep's head in the past pretty thick. For at certain times when the water's cool or water's clear, you can still see a lot of those sheep's head kind of schooled up around the dock pilings. Snook action starting to get better and better in the passes. Quite a few of them have moved out in the beaches, and we're seeing a ton of snook action in the back bay around the flats, but mostly kind of more schooly size fish. These bigger ones are out on the beach and in deeper areas, a little bit more tricky to find. But we're seeing a lot of snook action, especially around the grass flats, mangroves, that sort of area. But the snook are definitely more targeted on the white bait right now. They're still biting the shrimp in the back bay around the flats, but white bait, as that water starts to move and they get to deeper areas, a lot of snook photos here. Definitely, you can see how many snook have been biting well. Trout action still pretty steady, not super crazy, but you're able to catch them. And mostly deeper grass flats still the best option, 3 to 5 foot of water. But look at this guy right here. This is I call him Mr. Sadorf still, one of my good friends growing up in high school. Nolan, this is his dad, Scott Sadorf. He's a local guy. He's grown up fishing the beaches. He's been a beach snook fisherman forever, and I don't think I could confidently say no one's better at catching snook on the beach than this guy right here. But look at this trout. He sight casted, thought it was a snook when he was far away from it. As he got closer, he couldn't believe it was a trout, and finally ate. That is a truly monster trout. Very incredible fish. Definitely wanted to feature that one. But I believe that's our last. No, there's still some more trout photos. Crazy the amount of inshore photos we've had, because like I said, we missed 1 week and we get a lot of people sending in those photos for our Fox 13 segments. Remember, you can submit your photos for those Fox 13 segments. They just have to be locally caught and they have to be recent. And typically we ask that you send those in kind of Wednesday night to Thursday night. Thursday morning is the best time. Right to our main office number right here. You can text us even if it's not caught on our boat, as long as it's locally caught around Tampa Bay. So like Tarpon Springs to Anna Maria, Cortez, that area, basically the viewing area, Fox 13. If it's locally caught and it's very recent, you can submit it to this phone number and we'll feature it on the news and on our live show too. So definitely is becoming more popular and why we have a lot of those inshore photos there. But let's move near shore as we work our way near shore and talk a little bit about what we're catching near shore and offshore. So still a lot of stuff to go over here too, because again, we missed a week. So lots of photos to run through here real quick. Hogfish bite, we're catching them, as you can see, just not a ton of them. We're just catching a few here, a few there. Maybe 1 or 2 or 3 on a half day is a good day. On a 10-hour, maybe 1, 2, 3, 5, or 6. Not anywhere close to what we catch in those cooler times of year when those hogfish are more concentrated. Mackerel action still going really well. Trolling on the way out on our 5-hour half days. Trolling on the way in. Sometimes, occasionally, trolling on our 10-hour trip. But we're catching a lot of those mackerel for sure. And red grouper, the 10-hour red grouper has been pretty darn good. This is a 10-hour red grouper here. We've been catching a handful of them on those 10-hour all days. So that's exciting news, and a ton of lane snapper lately. So lane snapper, mangrove snapper, red grouper, that's what we're really focused on. Fishing a little deeper near shore on the 10-hour trips and on the hub and flying hub 2 on our shorter private fishing charters. And that's the area, 70 to 100 foot. Big lanes, big mangroves, vermilions, porgies, and then a couple handfuls of those nice red grouper. And still some kingfish around too, but we'll get to that. Lots of big gag grouper have been caught and released lately. Even this one from our half-day trip. Definitely seeing some nice gag grouper action. Getting excited for June 1st when those gag grouper will open back up. Solid red grouper offshore. Offshore, the bigger red grouper are definitely a lot more common, and we're seeing them more frequently. Mike Hart, appreciate those 500 stars, buddy. Thank you so much. There's one from the 39-hour. Big triggerfish. We've been seeing a lot of the triggerfish lately too. Here's another hogfish from one of those nearshore trips. Oops, went zooming by. Scamp grouper. We've been catching some nice scamp. This was from our slow pitch jigging trip, and that went real well. We dealt with rougher conditions. It was a solid 3.5 foot sea, and it got even a little bit more bumpy once we got out there. It was definitely borderline for this trip, but we made it out there and we made it happen. Also, higher winds and a faster drift speed, which made the trip a lot more tricky. We caught a good amount of red grouper, almost a boat limit, just not anything real massive red grouper wise. We did catch a ton of big gag grouper, and we saw a lot of those red snapper, but had to sort through those, and we got a good number of triggerfish. I think we were like 2 or 3 triggerfish shy of a boat limit. We got a lot of keeper red grouper like this one here, anywhere from 20.5 inches up to like 26, 27 inches. So it was a tougher day as far as you just had to really fish hard and work hard to stay in contact with the bottom because of the speed of the wind and the speed of the drift and the strong current. You weren't getting much bottom time. You would drop a jig down, you'd jig it maybe a dozen times, and you're already scoped out, and you had to retrieve the jig and then drop again to stay in contact with the bottom. Because with those slow pitch jigs, you have to be vertical and stay in contact with the bottom, which is the challenge at times when the boat's drifting really fast or the wind's ripping or the current's strong. You can see here, those hogfish, they're still coming. We're still catching them, just not a ton of them. Big mangroves lately. Definitely some solid mangrove snapper on the 12-hour extreme, 39-hour trips. Some beautiful fish. Look at that one. Just barely escaped predation on the way up. Don't know if it was a Goliath or a shark, but it got bit halfway up and he was able to wrestle it away. There's a sunrise scamp. Nice fish there. The kingfish, like I said, we're still seeing the kingfish on the 5-hour half day, 10-hour all days. Here's some half day hogfish. There's a big mackerel from the hub trip, big kingfish, half day kingfish, slow pitch jig fishing trigger, big red grouper from our slow pitch jigging trip. These are 2 different red groupers, by the way, just throwing that out there. Jamin just makes it look really, really easy. This is Jamin Vreen. We had him on our show a few months back talking about slow pitch jig fishing, and I really don't even like fishing with the guy because, like, we'll be fishing next to each other, and he will outfish the whole boat almost every trip I've been on. Actually, every trip I have been on with him, he puts everybody to shame with these slow pitch jigs, and his dad is the same way. And this last trip, I was fishing between him and his dad at times, and it makes you really question your abilities as a fisherman.
Well, that was your first mistake.
Yeah, I should have not picked that fishing spot. But it's also, I've learned a lot fishing in between them and seeing what they're doing. And at one point, I just kind of stopped and was watching his dad, James, and I figured out that he was working the jig, because everybody thinks slow pitch jig fishing, you got to constantly work the rod up and down and constantly jig. Well, it's very variable. What I've been doing and what I've been trying more is varying the height of the jig or the angle that I'm retrieving the jig, or just changing up the methodology or the technique that I'm using. And what I saw him doing, and he was catching some red grouper, is he would jig a short jig and then let the jig fall to bottom and sit there for a second. And then he would twitch the rod normally. And it was kind of like short, pause, medium. And it was interesting what he was doing, but it was working. So I started to imitate that and kind of switching it up each time I bounced that jig. And it works, sporadic movements. So it is an art to that slow pitch jig fishing. That's right. And it's what you have confidence in, and it's like working any artificial lure inshore too. You got to just see what works well for you and then try to replicate that once you start catching them. But I was the triggerfish king on this trip. I think I caught 5 or 6 monster triggerfish, so it was fun. But that was a surefire sign of my lack of ability to stay in contact with the bottom. I have a lighter slow pitch jig rod, and all my jigs were pretty light too. A lot of the guys were using 200, 250, 300 gram jigs, and most of my jigs are from like 60 grams to like 220, 230. So I didn't have a lot of heavier jigs, and I only have a Power Zero rod, which was a silly mistake that I made purchasing a rod very early before asking anybody about it or talking to anybody about it. I should have bought a rod that was rated for more power, but you live and you learn. Look at this. This one was an exciting catch from the hub. They caught a carburetor grouper, a true black grouper. That's the one right above my shoulder here. Nope, I was right the first time. That guy right up there. That is a carburetor, carbo, true black. A lot of people call them carbos, but other people call them carburetas or black or true black grouper. Definitely a really cool fish. Most of the time you see them real big out in deep water, but occasionally we'll catch them near shore and keeper size. This was a keeper fish near shore, so pretty cool to see, especially coming up with the big red grouper. But look at this. This one came in this morning. This was a over 12-pound keeper hogfish. I still think it was bigger than 12 pounds. It looked bigger than 12 pounds. It was a solid head. Look at the head on that hogfish. I mean, just meaty fish. And this was pretty interesting. So we're putting together a trend, if you will. Will is going to try it on the next overnight trip. This gentleman has been fishing with us about once or twice a year, and he's caught a big hogfish like this the last 2 or 3 trips in a row. And Will and him were talking. He's using a big frozen, so nothing special, not live, but he's bringing out big jumbo shrimp. So he's using frozen jumbo shrimp at sunrise, sun up and sundown, out there on the 39-hour in deep water. So 12-hour extreme, 39-hour, we're going to have to start trying that, some jumbo shrimp at sun up and sundown. So we might stumble onto a thing here. I don't know. We're going to try it. We'll let you know. But he swears by it 3 trips in a row, and let me tell you, you don't see a lot of these big hogfish come up in deep water on hook and line. So if he's found something that works, we might have something here, folks. So we're going to have to keep trying that, and wanted to talk about it a little bit during the show because you guys might want to try it too. So jumbo shrimp, sun up and sundown out there in deep water. All right, so we talked about our inshore photos, our nearshore and offshore photos. Want to make sure we remind you again, please vote for us for that top boat tour in the country. We were nominated for the top 10 boat tours according to USA Today, but we need your help to be number 1. So make sure you vote before, during, or after the show, and tell your friends. But with that, let's do our first free trip of the night. We're going to give away our 5-hour half day for 2 guests. 5-hour half day for 2 guests. Let's see who the winner is. Don Durant. Congratulations, Don Durant from Florida, on that lucky win of a 5-hour half day for 2 guests. You got 5 minutes or less, Don, to claim that free trip. You can claim that free trip by texting us at that phone number right there. You got 5 minutes or less to claim it. So make sure you shoot us a text quickly to claim that free trip. We are going to talk a little bit about upcoming events. Then we're going to talk about the weather. Then we're going to get into your questions. If you do have a question you want answered live during the show, text us at that phone number there, guys. So as far as upcoming events go, we've got May 21st, the rescheduled Michael Magley tournament is coming up. That is Saturday, May 21st is the weigh-in at 4 o'clock over there at Osprey Bay Outdoors. Remember, you can keep up with all our upcoming events at our other website, the CaptainDylanHubbard.com. So CAPT DylanHubbard.com. We have the upcoming events page there with all the upcoming events. So you want to check it out. Also, May 22nd, Sunday, May 22nd, 2 p.m., we've got our Bass Pro Shops fishing conversation going on at the Tampa Bass Pro Shop. So May 22nd, 2 p.m., Tampa Bass Pro Shops. And then June 18th, mark this one down, we've got the Sergio Antanas is putting on a kids fishing clinic at Picnic Island over in Tampa, and we'll have a table set up talking to kids about offshore and nearshore fishing, and he'll be talking to kids about inshore fishing. I think the first 150 kids are going to get a rod courtesy of Lee Fisher, and that's Tampa Fishing Outfitters, St. Pete Fishing Outfitters, Tarpon Fishing Outfitters. Hubbard's Marina contributed as well, and I'm sure there's a bunch of other businesses that Sergio was able to get in on that as well. But all I know is we worked with Lee Fisher to get some donated as well. But the first 150 kids there are going to leave with a combo, a rod and reel combo, a spinning rod and reel combo. So definitely a good time to bring out your kids, get them hooked on fishing, and get them their first rod and reel combo. So really, really cool. Hopefully we'll see you for that event June 18th. With that, let's get into the weather here real quickly and show you guys what's going on with the weather. So we are in a little bit of a funky period here. We're going to go to fishing trips on our website and scroll down to weather links to bring up our weather links page. And it would help if I clicked on it, right? We're going to go to our weather links page and look first at our 5 and 10 hour forecast area on Wind Finder. And you can see the winds starting to pick up here midweek. Unfortunately, it starts to pick up tonight. Gets really, really nasty there through Wednesday. Wednesday is kind of the bumpiest day, and it's starting to get bumpy basically tomorrow night, and windier through the day Tuesday, then kind of hitting a peak Wednesday, then slowly calming down Thursday, and then once again beautiful for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and into the following week. So some gorgeous weather ahead starting Friday through the early part of this week, Monday through Thursday. Looks pretty breezy, pretty bumpy, especially offshore. Nearshore doesn't get super crazy, so we'll be able to fish Monday through Thursday on our 5 and 10 hour trips probably, since we're staying closer to shore, but it's just not going to be a beautiful flat calm day, and fishing will probably be a little bit tougher, and we'll show you why by scrolling to the bottom of our weather links page and going to our good old buddy Mike's page, spaghettymodels.com, or Mike's weather page. And we're going to go up here to the tropical tidbits link and show you guys here why. And if you follow the Captain Dylan Hubbard Facebook page, I've been talking about this for quite a while, and it's finally starting to get picked up on some of these models. Let's go to this one, actually. This one won't be run yet. We're going to go to the 12Z. So you can see here, this is the cold front that zoomed across the country. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see. So it came across the country, gave a lot of bad weather to the middle of the country, especially south, like Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Oklahoma really got some bad weather from this front. Now it's out over water, and it kind of dingles around out there in the Atlantic, staying over the jet stream, getting some energy, and then kind of meanders back to Florida. So never really gets super organized. It doesn't really become anything to worry about, but it's going to be creating a big pressure ridge as this high pressure over here. So it's almost 10, 20 millibars here, and then right over here it's another 10, or it's 10, 10. So it's a pretty big pressure gradient or pressure difference between that low pressure that's hanging over here in the Atlantic And this high pressure that's over here off the coast of Texas, bringing a lot of heat to Texas in this area and a lot of dry air. So that dry air is fighting with this low, which has a lot of moisture in it, and it's going to create some serious wind rippage over the state of Florida. And that's what's creating this weather pattern that we're seeing here with this increase in wind Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And that's why. It's because of that blob that we've been talking about that could have potentially been a hurricane or a tropical storm sitting off our east coast, high pressure sitting way to the west of us on the west side of the Gulf of Mexico. And they're fighting over Florida, and that's what's creating that higher wind. So pressure gradients means stagnant barometer, higher winds, tougher fishing. That's the long of the short. But the backside of the wind, the good news is on the backside of this wind, later in the work week, we're coming up on a full moon. Weather's going to be gorgeous. Things are going to be settling out. Excuse me. This upcoming weekend should be gorgeous and a really good opportunity to catch a lot of fish with that full moon and the weather finally calming down and clearing up. Because remember, the best opportunities to catch fish is right prior to that cold front approaching or 3 to 4 days after the cold front approached. Then the fishing picks up really, really well. With that, we're going to get into some of these questions. So let's see if you got a question. If you do have a question, make sure you text it to us right here. Josh, you want to read off our first question? What's up with the parking at Madeira Beach? It's like a tourist trap in there. Anywhere to park over there for free so you can go fishing. So Johns Pass is the #1 tourist destination in the county. So we average a little more than 1.3 million visitors in a year. There's nowhere free to park in Johns Pass. I myself don't even park for free in Johns Pass. We get 8 manager parking spots for our company of over 80 staff members, and that's built in as a cost on our lease. So I pay for my own parking spot in Johns Pass. There's nowhere to park for free, and I have no control over parking. It is a tourist destination. It's a tourist area. You don't go to Disney World and get free parking, and unfortunately, around Johns Pass, Madeira Beach, there is no free parking. Sorry, it is a tourist area. It's not a tourist trap. I don't like that terminology too much, but I understand where you're coming from as a local. There used to be some places over across the pass, but they've changed that, and I don't know of anywhere you can park for free. Scott and Melissa are coming fishing tomorrow morning on a half-day trip. Good catching? What do you think? We're from Minnesota. We've been fishing about 7 to 8 years now. Tomorrow is Monday. It's on the front side of that wind, but it's on the back side of the cold front we got today. I would assume it's probably going to be a little tougher fishing. When on the half-day trips, fishing is good year-round. We do really well on those half-day trips. Someone was asking me today, what's the best time of year to do a half-day trip? We catch the same fish pretty much year-round. It's our shortest trip, closest to shore. It's great for beginning anglers, families, young children, and people that just want to get out there on the water and don't have all day to spend or don't have the budget to go on a long-range trip. It's a fun fishing trip, and you catch a lot of good eating smaller fish. But it is our shortest trip closest to shore, so we don't get out too far. We target the same thing all year round. Those gray snapper or white grunts, porgies. You might see some sea bass. You might see a lot of hogfish in cooler months. You see the kingfish and mackerel in spring and fall. Sometimes you might luck into a keeper red grouper in the warmer months, but it's pretty much just those gray snapper, white grunts, and porgies on the half-day trip. So it really just comes down to weather. The weather's good, fishing's good. Tomorrow, the weather's not going to be perfect. Fishing's probably not going to be super stellar. If it was me, I would wait till later this week into the weekend. Probably Friday would be a good time because Sunday's that full moon. You don't want to fish on the full moon or too close to it, especially during the daytime typically. So I would say the best time to fish would be probably Friday this week, if you were going to ask me that. So next question. Can you give me some good tips for catching more fish during the jam-packed summer red snapper 39-hour trips? How do you stand out when there's more hooks in the water? Easy. The best way to catch the most amount of fish during the terribly short, well overstated, over dramatic. What's the word I'm looking for, Josh? Overplayed red snapper season. Truly highly held on a pedestal red snapper. What we're getting at is a lot of people, when we talk about this on a lot of shows, so I won't spend a lot of time on it, but a lot of people will not fish all year because they only want to fish during red snapper season. Even this morning, I heard people on the dock after our 39-hour trip, well, I'm going to come back in July. I'm going to wait to fish again until June or July when red snappers open. It's like, that's the worst time of year to fish. It's hot. Boats are full because everybody and their brother wants to get out there during that red snapper season, which starts June 1st and runs till end of day August 18th. It's a 79-day season for us here at Hubbard's Marina and any federally permitted charter boat or party boat in the Gulf of Mexico across any of the 5 Gulf states. But definitely a good opportunity to catch those red snapper on our 12-hour extreme, 39-hour, 44-hour. The 10-hour all day, the 12-hour night does not target those red snapper. You get a chance for them on a 12-hour night snapper, but we don't target them. 10-hour all days, you got no shot. Do not book a 10-hour all day thinking you're going to get red snapper. I will chuckle. They start about 35, 40 miles. Our 10-hour fishing trip only gets to about 25, maybe 30 miles. We might catch a keeper red snapper, but it might be like 1 or 2. Sorry, my mouth keeps getting dry on me. All right, so what pound test do you recommend on your 12-hour extreme? Is 30 too light? Yes, 100%. 30-pound leader is way too light for a 12-hour extreme. Normally on a 12-hour extreme trip, I'd be fishing about 60-pound leader on average. But if I'm dropping down a big live bait or a bigger dead bait, I'd be using 80-pound, maybe even 100-pound leader, especially during gag season. I'd be starting with 100-pound fluorocarbon and then dropping down to 80 if the bite was a little tough or a little slow. During the outside of gag grouper season, I'd be starting with probably 80 or 60 pound, depending on the bait size that I'm choosing to use. Might drop down to 50 to get those mangroves chewing, maybe 40 if it was super slow, but never less than that, just because you don't want to break off when you finally do hook that big fish. The 12-hour extreme is fishing the similar area as the 39-hour, but you don't get as much fishing time. So we're really focused on those bigger fish, those groupers, and we're kind of hitting and moving, sticking and moving. It's not like the 39-hour where we might sit on a spot for 2 hours at night and just bail mangrove snapper, porgies, vermilions, yellowtails, and a few nice grouper. It's stick and move, really moving quicker between spots, and typically less numbers of fish, but the fish we do catch are typically pretty quality. So like on a 39-hour, you might have a handful of grouper and a bunch of snapper, whereas on a 12-hour extreme, you might have a handful of grouper, but maybe 1 or 2 snapper. Much less of the smaller kind of fish because we're using bigger hooks. We're typically only using single hook rigs. We're using bigger baits, so our selectivity is geared towards those bigger fish. Let's see here. What other questions do we have? The 39 hours definitely the way to go for more fishing time, 2-day bag limit, and the opportunity to fish through the nighttime period, and it's less weather sensitive. A lot of people are like, you've canceled 3 12-hour extremes on me. I don't cancel any trips. The weather cancels trips, and that's out of my control. It's out of your control, unfortunately. And the 12-hour extreme is a 42 foot. It's 40 foot at the waterline, 44 foot overall. So it's a 40-foot boat going out there at basically 40 miles an hour, 30, 33, 35 knots. You can't do that in 3.5 foot seas. You can't make the right speed. You can't get far enough out there. It's a small boat going real fast. You don't want to be out there in 3.5, 4 foot seas on a 40-foot boat, 70, 80, 100 miles from shore. It's borderline unsafe. It's not comfortable, and it's impossible to get out there with any efficiency or speed that you need to really have a good quality experience. So the Flying Hub 2 is very weather sensitive, whereas a 39-hour, that boat can go out in 8 to 10 foot seas. Will it? Probably not. We typically cancel once it's above 4 to 6 or above 20, 25 knot winds. And that's what we had to do. Unfortunately, we had to cancel our midweek 39-hour trip. Weather was getting really, really high. We had 22 people booked, so extremely light load, and some people were concerned about the weather. We had people starting to drop off, and it was 4 to 6 foot, calling for more than 20 knot winds, so we had to cancel the trip, unfortunately. Whereas in 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to have 50 people totally sold out for the red snapper season. And that blows my mind. It's like you could go 2 weeks earlier, catch every single other fish, and triggerfish, which closed June 1st, and amberjack are open right now. But no, I'm going to wait till June and go out in a sold-out boat because I want that red snapper. Whatever. I'm not going to argue with you guys. You know how I feel about that. Somebody asked about triggerfish. Triggerfish are open. They open every year March 1st. They run till the end of May. They close during June and July, and they might reopen August 1st if there's quota left. So triggerfish open March 1st, close end of May, and then they will reopen August 1st if there's quota left. Amberjack was the other fish you asked about in your comment. May, the month of May, amberjack are open, and then all of a sudden they close in June and July, and they might reopen August, September, and October, but I don't think that's probably going to happen this year. I think we're just going to have May on amberjack this year, but we'll see. What's a good place to catch sand fleas? Whenever anybody asks me that, it makes me laugh for a second. Where's a good place to catch those fleas?
Clearwater.
Clearwater's a good answer. No, I mean, virtually any beach. They are a weird crustacean that live in the sand. You need those sand rakes, but definitely see them quite a bit in Madeira Beach. And I know Brian Harris, our Buka, our bait guy, is dialed in. He said the sand fleas are thick. I don't know where he's looking, and if I did know, I wouldn't give out his honey hole, but they're on the beaches, and that's a good place to look for them. I would say Blinds Pass is a good area to start, so like the north end of Sunset, south end of Madeira Beach, south end of Treasure Island, north end of Sunset Beach. Finding them there and then casting into Blinds Pass, or the south end of Paso Grill, fishing the Paso Grill channel, or around Johns Pass, off the Johns Pass jetty, the north jetty of Johns Pass, around the north tip of the jetty, western tip of the north jetty. Good areas to look. Next question. I'm going crazy over here trying to figure out how to watch the live show. The live show is right on our Facebook page. Just Google search Hubbard's Marina Facebook, and you'll find our Facebook page. It's there. It's also on our YouTube page. It's on our Twitch page, Trovo page. It's all over the place. It's on the Real Animals Facebook page. It's on the Captain Dylan Hubbard Facebook page. I think it streams to 4 or 5 Facebook pages. So Josh will send you over the link, and hopefully you can catch it there. My son wants to buy his first saltwater rod and reel to use on Hubbard's Marina long-range trips. Will the Saltist 2-speed LD50 be adequate for the Bull Bay rod? Yes, that's definitely very adequate for a first reel. They're about $369 in our shop, and you get 10% off when you're booking a trip, so they're like $330 in our shop. And then the Bull Bay Hubbard's Marina rod is $250. That I would match with it. That's the red wrapped Bull Bay rod. It's 20 to 40, and match that Saltist, that blue and black Saltist with it. The better option, more all around, a little bit more power, a lot smoother, would be the Saltiga LD50 with the light green wrapped 30 to 80 rod, and that's going to be a really good all around rod. That's what I fish with 98% of the time when I'm bait fishing out there on 12-hour streams, 39 hours, even 10-hour trips. It's got plenty of power for a bigger fish, and it's plenty sensitive for the lighter fish. But a saltist is a great starter to get your feet wet. It's a really, really nice starter, don't get me wrong. But the Saltiga is just a bigger step up from the saltist, but it's considerably more expensive. Yes, it is definitely one heck of a first combo. The saltist with a bull bay rod is kind of like getting a Corvette for your first rod and reel combo. But some people do that, and that's what I did for slow pitch jigging. Is like I want to get something really nice because I know I like it. I know I'm investing in it. So I don't want to buy a jalopy to come back the next week and buy a Nissan to come back the next week to buy a Corvette. It's like if I know I'm going to do this for a while, I know I'm investing in it and I like it, let's jump right into the Corvette and get in the driver's seat and break this sucker in, you know. So some people roll that way, and that's cool. But if you're balling on a budget, the Penn Fathom 2-speed is, it hurts me to say, but it's the best. It's the lowest priced. I wouldn't call it the best. It's the lowest priced 2-speed option, the Penn Fathom 2-speed. I don't like Penn. Don't like it at all. But Daiwa's Saltist is kind of the best opinion, or in my opinion, the best starter 2-speed reel. Any 2-speed reel is going to be expensive, but the Saltist is something you can get for around $300, $330. That's a really solid reel that you'll be happy with. All right, time for a 10-hour all day for 2 guests. 10-hour all day for 2 guests. That is a $238 value. Let's see who the lucky winner is of the 10-hour all day for 2 guests. Roll it, Josh. Jessica Herring. Congratulations, Jessica, from Tampa with that 10-hour all day for 2 guest win. Congratulations. Remember, you got 5 minutes to claim that free trip by texting us at that phone number right there to prove that you're watching live. Yeah, there is a Shimano Speedmaster. Yeah, Shimano's always trying to keep up with Daiwa because Shimano had the Talica 2-speed, and then they released just recently in the last 3 or 4 years the Speedmaster, and that was to kind of their answer to the Saltist. Shimano's great. I like Shimano. It's a quality reel, but I think they've always been overpriced. You're buying the Shimano name. You're paying for the Shimano name, where Daiwa just gives you a really good product, and they don't charge you extra because it says Daiwa. But Shimano is a great product, but it is more expensive. You got to weigh that. Another question. And keep in mind, I'm not sponsored by Daiwa. If they offer it, I mean, I take it, but I just like their products. I always have, and they have better customer service. When you buy a Saltiga reel from us at Hubbard's Marina or any place, a Saltiga high-quality reel from Daiwa, and you keep the receipt for 5 years. For 5 years, you can go on the website, enter the information, show proof of purchase, your original purchase receipt, and you can send that reel to Daiwa. Someone will sit down with white gloves, take that thing apart, service it, oil it, clean it, and send it back to you for $0 for 5 years. That's how much they believe in their Saltiga line. So it is really, really, really cool. You can't get that with the Stellas that you're paying 3 times the money for. It's crazy. Are hogfish moving to deeper water as the water warms? No, hogfish spread out, and they go in their little harems, and they move off the ledges, and they just get more difficult to target. They kind of scavenge more, and they definitely are less aggressive, less concentrated, and more leader shy. We do catch them. We do still see them. They're still around the ledges. Keep in mind, there's a lot of divers jumping in the water when the water warms up, keeps the pressure on them more. There's more people out on the water, more lines in the water. So they just get more pressure. When it gets cooler, water temperature's lower, they concentrate on the ledges. They feed more aggressively for kind of preparing themselves for their spawn. So it's a lot easier to catch them. October-ish through early April-ish, depending on the weather. basically cooler water is what makes the hog fishing really, really good. So let's see what other questions we have here. What size reel do you recommend for grouper? A little vague. We need more information. Do you want to know grouper fishing on a 10-hour, grouper fishing on a 39-hour, depth of water, and what kind of grouper? Are you talking red grouper, gag grouper? Plus, nowadays, I always used to just give people, like, for grouper fishing, I'd recommend a 6-aught reel or more. But it was pointed out to me that nowadays, all these different reel companies, they don't use aughts anymore. When I was growing up, 4-aught, 6-aught, 9-aught, 9-aught, 12-aught, 14-aught, and that was about it. You could find a 3-aught, you could find some smaller stuff and some unique stuff like 5-aughts, but it was all done in certain standard sizes, and it didn't matter if you bought a Daiwa, Penn, whatever it was, Shimano. It was all sized the same and universally. Nowadays, it's totally away from that. Like Daiwas, you got 10, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 50, 55, 60, and they're coming out with the 65. Shimano is super funky. It's like a Talica 15, 20, and 25. Each company, Accurate does it super weird. There's a bunch of like very unique ways to size reels. So it's impossible to say, use this size reel, because every company does it differently. So I've gone to more drag ratings, and that's a little easier because every reel shows you the max drag. One cool thing, again, about Daiwa is they always underestimate their drags. So like a Saltist is rated for 35 pounds of drag. A Saltiga is rated for 40 pounds of drag. And I know without a shadow of a doubt that a Saltiga has way more than 40 pounds of drag. So it's definitely pretty cool when a company like that is underrating their reels. But for gag grouper, I wouldn't drop down a big live bait or a big dead bait for a gag grouper unless I had 40 pounds of drag or more, or a very low gear ratio, large winch style reel, like a 9-aught. My big 9-aught doesn't have 40 pounds of drag, but it's got such a low gear ratio and such a big reel. Physics give me more torque, and it's a big, meat, thick rod that's rated to 100 pounds, and I can put it on a rail and really torque on that fish. So you have more power and more pressure using the lever of the side of the boat. You put the rod on the rail, put the foam of the rod on the rail. Don't use a pool noodle. Just use the foam of the rod, and the 9-aught works really well. But most of those old school 9-aughts don't have close to 40 pounds of drag. A Saltiga has 40 pounds of drag, but it's a smaller, compact reel, and you just don't have the power of that big, big reel with a bigger main gear. It's just the physics aren't behind that reel as much, but it's much lighter, much more compact, much more comfortable to fish with. So if I was going to drop down a big bait for a big gag, I would grab the 9-aught, make sure I have at least 40 pounds of drag, or one of those big 9-aughts, 80, 100-pound leader, even 125-pound leader if it's a really big bait. Don't ever grab a spinning rod and hook up a pinfish. It drives me crazy. This last overnight trip, we boated Capt, less than a dozen amberjack. Will told me they broke off more than 2 dozen. So literally only about 30% of the fish were caught because people were using too light of tackle, too light a line, too small of reels, a lot of tangles, a lot of break-offs, couldn't turn the fish, couldn't stop them. They're getting in the wreck or getting in the bottom and breaking people off. During gag grouper season, a lot of times we only land 20, 30, maybe 35, 40% of the gags that are hooked. On the slow pitch jigging trips, the last 2 trips, I've gotten my butt handed to me and gotten rocked up or broke off by really big fish. Probably big gags, because I'm using this little tiny reel and learning a new style of fishing, and I can't set that slow pitch jig rod on the rail. But if I'm using my big 9-aught with a 125-pound leader, I guarantee you I'm not going to get rocked up. But if you're using that light, small tackle, the chance of you getting rocked up and broke off and shutting down the bite for everybody else is much higher. So got to make sure you're using the right tackle for the job. A Penn 6/0 will work for your average size grouper, but you want to catch a 30-pound grouper, 30-pound gag grouper, you got no shot typically, unless you really, really get lucky or you really, really know what you're doing. Like John Martin will use his 6/0 a lot of times for gag grouper fishing and be successful with it. Me personally, I could pull it off. Garrett loves his 6/0 for gag fishing. I personally would much rather use a 9/0. My dad uses a 9/0. It just gives you more power and more ability, but it is much heavier, much less comfortable. But I personally like fishing for mangroves a lot, so I'm using lighter tackle like my Saltiga, still with a 50, 60-pound leader, and still with 5, 6, probably 6/0 double snell hooks with a 60-pound leader is what I would fish for mangroves with at night during gag season. Because if I hook a gag, I still have a chance to catch it. The mangrove bite's good. I'm still going to catch them with 60-pound leader and those bigger 6/0 hooks. But I'm fishing deadbait. If we get in a good push of gag grouper fishing, that's when I'll switch to 80-pound, 100-pound leader, drop down a really big bait on a bigger rod and reel. Whereas like someone like John Martin, he fishes big live pinfish on heavy leaders much more frequently, much more often. And that's how he catches a lot of big fish, is he fishes big live baits much more consistently. Whereas you might catch more mangrove snapper, vermilion snapper, beeliners, scamp, fishing dead baits on lighter tackle on that smaller compact reel, but you run the risk of being broke off. Whereas John's going to catch that fish that he hooks up with because he's using bigger tackle. So it really comes down to a little bit of a trade-off. Do you want to get more bites and more action? Or do you want to make sure you can land that fish when he does bite? Or be like me and you want to use a small dead piece of bait for those little mangroves, and then I want to target a bigger fish, so I'm going to use a little bigger bait, heavier leader, bigger reel, bigger rod, switch combos. And that's what a lot of advanced anglers will do, is they'll come out with 2, 3, 4 rods, and each rod, like for example, me on a 39-hour, I'll bring my Saltis on my 20 to 40 rod, rigged up with 40, 50-pound main line, 40, 50-pound leaders, 4 5/0 hooks, and then I'll have a Saltiga on a 30 to 80 rigged up with 60-pound main line, 60-pound leader, maybe 6/0 hooks. Then I'll have another Saltiga on a 30 to 80 with 60-pound main line, 80-pound leader, 7 8/0 hooks. Then I'll have the 9/0 with a 100-pound main line, 100-pound leader, 10 12/0 hooks. So that way I can grab a different rod and be fishing with a different leader size, different main line size. I can use a bigger or smaller bait depending on what's going on, what I'm seeing on deck. So that is why people bring more than one rod. A lot of people are like, why does that guy need 4 rods? Well, he's got 4 rods based on this, what he's going to see out there on a 39-hour. That makes sense on a 39-hour. Bringing 4 rods on a 10-hour makes no sense because you're not going to see that variety on a 10-hour trip. On a half-day trip, more than 2 rods doesn't make sense. I think on a half-day, you should be able to bring max 2, 10-hour max 3, 39-hour maybe 5 if you're going to troll. And that's about it. People go way, way above that, and it's kind of silly. So, but everybody has their own opinion. We're all entitled to them, right? Is the Speedmaster size 12 sufficient for the 39-hour? Unfortunately, I can't help you because I'm not familiar with the Speedmaster, and more frequently when people ask me that, I don't know, because each company sizes are real different. I don't know what the Speedmaster size 12 is, but to me that sounds small because I know the Talica like 16 is they're like equivalent of an LD50 Daiwa. So that one's a really good option, but I don't know if that's the same in Speedmaster. So if you want, you could send me the link or just stop by the shop. I always tell people just stop by the shop or bring it with you on your trip, and we can always look at it before or after the trip. All right, we've got 1 minute, and this is a good question, so we're going to answer this one real quick. Why are gag groupers so challenging to bring to land successfully, to bring up? Do you have any tips to increase my chances? Why, yes, we do. Right on our website page. If you go to hubbardsmarina.com, are you bringing me there, Josh? So if you go onto our website and you go over here to the fishing trips tab, scroll down to fishing video links, and scroll over to fishing tips and tricks. This is our fishing tips and tricks page where all our videos are filmed. And I think this one's it. Oh, it's 12 minutes long. Well, we don't have time to watch it, but you have time to watch it after the show. But basically, a lot of the tips are in here, and there's a ton of tip videos in here. So definitely check out this page. There's a ton of video on our website. Every live show we do is posted there on the website. Every Bass Pro Shop seminar is posted there on the website. We have a ton of shorter clips on the fishing tips and tricks page too. But to answer your question, to give you more success, use the right reel with enough drag, use the right size leader with a big enough hook, and make sure that you're ready to go to war. Stand up in the bow of the boat one time and watch Garrett drop down a big live bait and see what happens when he hooks up to a big gag grouper. The dude explodes. It's literally scary. I don't like fishing too close to him because he freaks out. And it's explosive power like that is what's going to land that gag grouper, because that fish is super smart, super aggressive. It takes a lot of practice to get them to bite because they're super smart and leader shy. You have to hook the bait naturally so it is presented naturally on the bottom. You got to stretch that leader out. You got to keep your weight still. You got to keep enough tension in the line to feel the weight but not to move the weight. So you got to dance with the boat, actively fish. And when you get that bite, you got to put the hammer down. You got to go to war. It's like you're arm wrestling the big guy at the bar for your girl. However you want to mentally picture it, but you are going into battle and you need to win. The first 10, 15 cranks are the win and the lose. Either you hook that fish and crank like a madman while you lift up and give it all you got, or you lose. And what a lot of people do, and I see, is, oh, I'm getting a fish, and they reel down a couple times and then they lift, and the fish just rails them, and then they just freeze. Oh, pop. And that's where the battle is lost. So when that fish rails you and starts pulling back, you got to crank till you can't crank anymore, and you got to look at your reel. A lot of people make that mistake because they just keep cranking. Your reel is not a winch. There's a certain point where the reel stops retrieving line. When you stop retrieving line, that means your drag power is not set high enough, or you have too weak of a reel. And once you stop retrieving line, that's the point where you lift up as hard as you can and then reel down. And then you do that a couple times. I call it a grouper. What was the term on the boat? I think it's called the grouper dance. This guy who used to fish with us kind of invented it, catching a big carp or a big cubera one time. And it's basically just short, really rapid pumps, trying to get some stretch back, gain some line. If you need to, drop down to a knee and use the rail of the boat, not your pool noodle, the rail of the boat with the foam of your rod, and use the rail as a lever, or stick your leg over the rail on a smaller boat and use your leg as a lever. Whatever you have to do to gain an advantage and gain some line. Once you get them up off the bottom, you got 10, 15 cranks, you've won the battle. You haven't won the war. At that point, you calm down. Then it's about finesse. Then it's about making sure all that tackle you just stretched out and overworked, it doesn't break on the way up. Once you got 10, 15 cranks, it's time to slow her down, steady crank. If he digs, let him dig. Point the rod straight at the fish and just steady crank. No more pumping. Relax, take a deep breath. It's all about finesse after that. That's how you get a big grouper off the bottom. Now, does it work every time? No. The best of us still get rocked up and broke off, and it happens. But that's the recipe for winning. We got to get a GoPro over Garrett this gag grouper season. When you guys see what I mean, it's very unsettling. But before we give away our last free trip of the night, don't forget our supporters after show is going to start up about 9:55. 9:55 will be our supporters after show in the supporters group. If you want, you can become a supporter today right on the top of our Facebook page. It's $4.99 a month, less than a cup of coffee. You get a lot of behind-the-scenes info. It's cool, kind of more connectivity, and a lot of shenanigans go on. So definitely some behind-the-scenes info there, and a cool way to connect with us. Plus, you get the after show, which is a big benefit as well. And you get these cool shirts. And these are like all I wear now. Let's see, what other not questions, what do we got to talk about before we end? Don't forget about our Fox 13 news segments every Friday morning, 8:15 a.m. Our Saturday morning Real Animals radio shows, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Also, don't forget, Sunday, May 22nd, Bass Pro Shops, 2 p.m. We hope to see you there at the Tampa Bass Pro Shops. This live show and all our live shows are brought to you by our friends over at Gator Jim's Tackle, 3301 Pinellas Point Drive, South in St. Pete. Stop by, tell them Hubbard's Marina sent you, and that you love the live show and you appreciate them bringing it and making it possible. Also, want to give a shout out to our other sponsors and partners at the Real Animals Radio Show, Garmin Electronics, Yamaha Outboard Engines, Bass Pro Shops, Engel Coolers, Salt Strong, Aquatic Nutrition, Sport Fishing Chum, Cleanse Oil, and Bull Bay Rods. And shout out to Aquatic Nutrition for dropping off some new Super Shrimp chum for those hogfish. Really appreciate you guys. Also, don't forget to check out Hubbard's Marina on TikTok, Pinterest, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Nextdoor, Waypoint TV, Trovo, and Twitch. All our social media channels. Y'all have a great night. Really appreciate y'all hanging out with us. We'll see you supporters, 9:55 for the private supporters after show on the supporters group. Let's see who won our 39-hour fishing trip for one guest. Over $400 value. Let's see who the lucky winner was. Nice. Chris Presley, local guy, and a longtime supporter. That's pretty cool. Appreciate you watching, guys. And hopefully we'll see you again next week for another episode of the live show. Don't forget, if you're too busy to go fishing, you're just too darn busy.